Today I'm talking about that inner critic, that negative self-talk in our head. Hi, I'm Paige Pradko. Welcome to Therapy for a Better Life. So why do we have that inner critic in our head? That constant negative noise. Maybe your inner critic kind of berates you and criticizes you and tells you why you can't do something and shames you or tells you why you messed up and punishes you. What is the purpose of that negative voice? Well, evolutionary biologists tell us that we are hardwired to have that self-critic, that inner critic in our head. We're hardwired because in caveman days, we needed to stay in the tribe. We needed to be accepted by the tribe. If we were rejected, we would not have survived. And so the inner critic was actually meant to help us survive. But it doesn't do us very much good nowadays if we're using that inner critic voice to just berate us, right? And shame us. I hear this inner critic voice in my clients that have depression, anxiety, OCD, addiction. I hear that voice loud and clear, and it really shames them. It tells them why they're not worthy, that somehow they're inadequate, they're unlovable, they've messed up, why bother? They're not going to be able to do it anyway. That inner critic is strong in many of my clients. And so we work to actually listen to it and then try to mold it a little bit. So this inner critic voice, there is a therapist and writer. Actually, he's a Buddhist, and his name is Jack Kornfield. And he talks about really externalizing that voice, separating it from yourself. It's not really your true voice. It's, just this inner critic that it might be trying to help you, but it's not going about it the right way. Anyway, Jack Kornfield calls his inner voice Adolf. And he tells Adolf, thank you for your opinion, but it's not really helping me right now. And I would like you to quiet down. Now, I like to look at the way different therapists and different writers kind of handle this inner critic. Pat Allen has written a book called Art is a Way of Knowing. And Pat Allen kind of attempts to notice that the inner critic is in some way trying to help us. Maybe it's trying to help us from embarrassing ourselves or shaming ourselves, but it has this ability that is maybe maladaptive, and it tends to kind of isolate us and unmotivate us. But Pat Allen likes to keep conversations going with this inner critic voice. Now, Dr. Rick Hansen, I really like his approach. He calls the inner critic as actually a guide. But he says, we can have good, positive guides, and we can have very negative guides and teachers. And it reminded me of, I had this piano teacher when I was little, and he used to just bang his conductor's baton on the piano when I was playing it. And I would just start shaking with fear. And so I actually associated the piano with high anxiety. And I just thought, wow, what would have happened if I had had a really encouraging, wonderful teacher instead of the crazy piano teacher I had. But I'm sure you know the difference when you've had an encouraging teacher, an encouraging coach, instead of a coach that does nothing but bash you and criticize you. you're going to respond a little bit different if you can mold your inner voice to be encouraging and nurturing. Think of it as how you would speak to a child who was trying, to do something, or maybe the child was feeling bad at the moment. Speaking to a child, you're going to have this unconditional love and this unconditional kind of encouragement and nurturing. And that's really the kind of relationship we want to mold that inner critic into, helping us nurture ourselves, helping us encourage ourselves. And so we have to kind of dial down the negativity and the harshness of our own inner voice. Whatever we say to ourselves, our brain listens and our brain enacts it. And so you really want to be saying something positive and encouraging to yourself. The goal here is to really get your inner critic on board with helping you, supporting you, nurturing you. And when you notice that voice is becoming negative, have a talk with that inner critic about how you really could use some support and some positive encouragement. So I hope that you take these things in mind. And why don't you leave me a comment or two about how you are going to turn this around with your inner critic and what you notice that your inner critic says to you and how you might turn that around. And I hope that you subscribe to listen to more topics on mental health. And if you have any suggestions on what you'd like me to talk about, please leave me that in the comments as well. So until next time, I will see you in session. Take care. Bye-bye.